Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another daily transfer update. And with just a couple of days left until the window shuts, maybe Chelsea might do some business. Obviously, the hunt for a centre forward potentially heating up. Links with Callum Wilson, John Duran from Aston Villa. Obviously, no big names are likely to come in. Maybe Amanda Broja leaves, maybe Conor Gallagher possibly leaves, although potentially unlikely. But there's loads to get into as always. I'm delighted to be joined by Ben Jacobs. Mate, thank you so much for coming as always. It's always great to catch up. Let's dive straight into it. Chelsea, centre forwards. Obviously, the last couple of windows have been manic for Chelsea. This one, by our own standards under Clearlake, has been very, very quiet. Just Ian Martin, Datro Fofana departing on loan deals. Other than that, nothing else has happened. In terms of the centre forward then, obviously the big name of Victor Osimhen and Ivan Toney is not going to happen this month, but what can you tell me potentially about a name arriving in the last couple of days? Maybe I know John Duran's injured, but there's still interest there, and maybe Callum Wilson with Newcastle, obviously open to a sale potentially.
Yeah, I mean, there might not be a name coming in. A slow window isn't always a bad window. A boring window can be an indication of a well-run club at times. I think it's just that there's such a gap in Chelsea's squad in the short term that it feels like a striker's not only needed this window, but has been for quite some time. But you can understand why. If the top targets are not available, you don't move now, especially if you're spending budget that you might need for an Osimhen. I still wouldn't rule out Evan Ferguson as well. So Chelsea are going to make a big move for what can largely be considered an elite level striker in the summer. And if they don't find the right name now, they won't move. So if there is to be a twist on that, then first of all, I think Amanda Broja might go. I know Chelsea are clear they don't need Broja to go to bring in a striker. And if Broja stays, they're not discounting bringing in a striker. So they're trying to keep those two separate. But I think the reality is the gap will be even more obvious if Broja goes without more depth. Nicholas Jackson might need some rest after AFCON. I don't think Cole Palmer's been particularly effective as a false number 9. Christopher Nkunku can lead the line, but it's not his favoured position. So Chelsea probably need something. And then you've got two choices with Osimhen not available, Ferguson not available, Toney, even though he's lower down the list, not available. You either buy young for the future, which is the project, or you find a stopgap. And I'm still told that Chelsea would prefer somebody that is an investment for the long term, not an expense. So that rules out Karim Benzema. I think the links with Chelsea and Arsenal were overblown. There's never been a green light for Benzema to leave Saudi Arabia. And even though there's a bit of friction, I don't think Benzema is exactly banging on the door because he appreciates the situation. So that for him might be one for the summer. And Chelsea makes a good headline, but I don't think it's anything more than that at this stage because of Benzema's wages and that inability to leave Saudi Arabia. Callum Wilson's the most interesting one because he could definitely do a job. He would be under 25 million. Many sources intimate it might even be closer to 18 to 20 million. And I think he'd be a very popular signing amongst Chelsea fans because they'd feel like he's a player for the now. But I still think that Chelsea would prefer someone for the future, which might irritate fans. But again, it's a 4-window plan. This is number 3 of those 4 windows. We're discounting the first summer when the ownership came in and they didn't really have a recruitment team. So if in the 4-window plan, the end goal is Osimhen, then you can understand why maybe they don't want Callum Wilson for a season or two. And the player, if they're older, may realise what Chelsea are playing at here and may feel like in a few months' time, they're not going to get any game time. And that's a consideration as well. So John Duran ticks a lot of boxes. Chelsea hadn't really moved. There were some cursory discussions with Monchi about potentially a swap, whereby Broja went one way and Duran went the other. I'm not aware at the time we're recording this that anything significant has developed there, but it could be one to watch. I still think Wolves and Fulham for Broja are the 2 main contenders, though. And then Noosa's really interesting, but again, not available right now, so doesn't fix anything in the short term, but is a target that Chelsea have liked in the long run. They would now have to hijack it because it's pretty much done with Brentford, but you just never know with Chelsea. It wouldn't surprise me if they try and put the cat amongst the pigeons. But everyone's looking for a name. There may not be a name because Chelsea may feel like there's no point in spending now if they've got that elite striker for the summer. The last thing I'd say, which is a risk, but is understandable, is look at an extreme And you can argue it the other way, of course. But look at a scenario where Chelsea win the League Cup final. They've already got Europa League. And then by that final, they're double digits away from Champions League with only a couple of months left of the season. At that point, you have to say, you've got your Europa League. You're not going to get your Champions League. So why would you play Wilson? Why would you play Benzema? Why would you play anybody that is not part of your long-term project when you've almost got, as bad as it sounds, because it will irritate the fan base if they've got nothing to play for in the league heading into the final few months. But why would you use that time if you've already got Europa League football? And it's a massive if, because you've got to beat Liverpool. But why in that scenario would you use that time to play anyone other than young players that need minutes and players for the future so you can hit the ground running next season? And I think that's part of Chelsea's consideration as well. If they can get over the line and get European football early, then the back half of the season, unless they get closer to Champions League football, can be more of a period of experimentation and acclimatization for these younger players. So keep Santos, play him. Keep Moreira, play him. And ultimately, it means they'll be all the stronger come next season. And I think that it works the other way. Lose the League Cup final and don't bring in experience in January or a striker. And everyone goes nuts because it might be mid-table mediocrity. And the flip side is, why on earth didn't they foresee this and move in January and find a goal scorer? So it's a fine balance, but I do think that Chelsea will not panic buy and they won't move on the striker front just for the sake of it.
Yeah, no, it's a difficult one to get right, because obviously I fully agree with you that obviously, like, as fans, we know that we need a centre forward, we need someone that can score goals, but at the same time, you know, it's very hard to find someone in the short term in January that's going to come in and get you those goals in the second half of the season straight away. So I almost feel like I'd rather not have anyone and then get the right person in the summer. But then obviously you do run that risk where if you lose the Carabao Cup final, if you sell Amanda Broja this month and you go with just Nicholas Jackson, and Kunku's fitness is questionable at the moment. You've got a Washington who's so raw that you've got no idea what you're going to get from him. You don't know if Pochettino fully trusts him. And you're leaving yourself very, very short. And that could be a massive problem come the back end of the season, given the injury issues that we've had. So if we can get someone, great. But at the same time, it's also important that it's the right person. It's not just for the sake of someone, you know, let's just appease the fans and just bring someone in for the sake of it. So it is a really difficult one to get right. But just specifically on Amanda Broja, obviously, if it's clear for me that he's not got a long-term future at Chelsea, I don't think he's going to be here next season. But I'm not saying he's the greatest player, but if we didn't bring a replacement in and we let him go, I think we're leaving ourselves so short, even though he's not making the most impact. Would you say now, what, Monday night with the window closing Wednesday night, do you think he'll still be a Chelsea player come Thursday morning?
I think if the right offer comes in, he's gone. It's as simple as that. And the fact that Chelsea are looking for a permanent aspect, loan with obligation or a permanent sale, tells you that
with no replacement. Like, so Chelsea don't want a replacement. They're happy to let him go with no one coming in.
Yeah, and I think part of that is thinking about profit and sustainability and bringing in a chunk of money, because you can't keep having the windows Chelsea have had and no doubt will want in the summer if they're to go for Victor Osimhen and not fund it. So Ian Maatsen didn't bring a fee. Trevor Chalobah not guaranteed that he'll leave, although it's a possibility. Obviously, if Conor Gallagher's still at the club, who I'm sure we'll talk about, then where are you getting money from that helps offset the massive spend? And the spend is not just what's to come. The spend is the amortized figures. So this is the reverse point to the so-called cheat code of Chelsea's 7, 8, 9-year deals before the rules changed. It feels like the annual spend is lower because you're dividing some of these contracts by 6, 7 or 8 before the rules changed. And just because the rules changed, they don't amend retrospectively. So anything before the rules were changed that was 6, 7, 8 years can be amortized over 6, 7, 8 years and so on. But these amounts linger. So it's all very well saying we're fine this year, we're fine the next year. But in those first few years of amortized payments that are lower because you've divided them by 7 or 8, you may not have Champions League football. So the two might cancel each other out and your finances are still a bit precarious. And then if things stabilize and you keep spending and spending and spending in future windows and amortizing by 5, then you've still got spillover from old amortization that, because you've divided it by so long, lingers on the books. So it's like constantly, instead of paying your credit card off, having small credit card payments, but in this case by the millions, that add up. And if you keep buying at volume and amortizing at volume, then eventually all these 5 million, 6 million, 7 millions that stay for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, depending on the length of the contract, add up. And before you know it, you start a financial year with something like 40, 50 million worth of payments covering 6, 7, 8 players. And Chelsea can't sustain themselves like that without bringing in ideally pure profit, but certainly big transfer fees. And that's where Broja comes in, and that's where Gallagher comes in, and that's where Lewis Hall comes in, and so on. So Broja is one of their most sellable assets at the moment, and they're not going to get 50 million. They may not even get 40 million. I think 30 to 35 million might be a possibility, but that's a club record for Fulham, for example, if it hits 35 million. So it just shows you that it's not just a nonchalant amount of money. It's a massive amount, and there's no guarantee. But at the right offer, Chelsea will let Broja go, and they'll do that whether or not they bring in another striker, because all these names that they're looking at, bar Callum Wilson, are not strikers for the now. Duran is rough-edged and he's injured. Nusa, were they to miraculously hijack it, not that I'm told that they're advanced at this point, but they've pushed in the past. He's going back to Bruges, so he's not going to be available to any club that he joins until next season. So a young striker isn't going to solve the gap. And if Broja goes, I think it will be a financial consideration. And it's a shame in many ways, because when Chelsea persuaded him in the summer of 2022 to extend, after West Ham bid 33 million, the player thought he had a pathway. And then it was all changed. Tuchel left, Potter came in, he was injured, he recovered. Had he not been injured in that back half of the season when Potter went and Lampard was the interim manager, he would have got game time, because Chelsea had nobody really scoring and leading the line. Kai Havertz certainly wasn't doing it. So Broja would have got a chance, and maybe he'd have built some momentum and changed people's minds. But now I think Chelsea just feel that they like him, they respect him, they know that if they sell him, he might go on to do great things. I think Pochettino has said he's very similar to Harry Kane in his early days before Kane really broke through and got going. So that will naturally make Chelsea fans say, wait a minute, if the manager's saying he could become the next Harry Kane, then why on earth are we getting rid of him? But I think that it's also a player consideration, because if Broja feels he can't get ahead of Jackson, that Nkunku might lead the line, that Palmer might even lead the line, that, as you say, Washington is there. You've got David Datro Fofana. You've got Whisper Richards eventually. So if they bring in Victor Osimhen and by the way, it isn't another summer striker, let's just say Benjamin Sesko, who could be a younger possibility, and you're playing a 4-2-3-1, then Broja is fourth, fifth in the pecking order all of a sudden, if those kind of names come in. So of course the player's going to be thinking, what's the point if the right offer comes in now of sticking it out to play in a League Cup final, probably from the bench, finish at best fifth or sixth in the table, and then regardless of where Chelsea finish, be on the bench the following season and probably be encouraged to go in the summer or in 2025. And I think when players think that, it's the beginning of the end. And that's why I think a Broja departure financially and from the player's perspective, if the right offer comes in, might just suit all parties.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with selling Broja. I just think, for me personally, as much as he's not done that well, and he's probably not really good enough for Chelsea, in my opinion, we need to keep him round just from a numbers perspective, because there isn't really anyone else. And you are, with the injury problems we've had, like, you're just asking for trouble. Just briefly before we move on, FC Copenhagen's, I can't really pronounce his name properly. Is he going to be on the move this summer? Chelsea obviously linked with all sorts of youngsters, you know, anyone that's half decent across Europe. Do you think there's a chance maybe Chelsea could be interested in him? Maybe a move for him could materialise?
Yeah, on Chelsea's list as well. One of the younger names, has done very well both domestically and in Europe as well. So there's some substance to this one. But I think that Chelsea want to understand the elite first, not the young name, which might be refreshing to the fan base because they've heard so much about youth. And I think that summer will be about established starters. And I don't think that Rooney quite falls into that category. But like I said before, it's probably two in the summer, especially if they get nobody in the next few days. And therefore, one will be younger and one will be more established, which is why a pairing of Osimhen and Rooney or Osimhen and Sesko is a very realistic possibility, because Chelsea need to obviously establish if Broja is leaving. In the next 2 windows, I think it's almost certain he'll go. So if it's not January, it will be the summer. And then they need to determine what kind of depth they've got, because Nkunku's best position is not leading the line. And it's problematic in some ways, because Palmer wants to play behind the striker and he's Chelsea's best player. So where does Nkunku play? Because Nkunku wants to play behind the striker. So you got to pick one or the other, which means Nkunku could lead the line and Palmer could play behind, or you could shift the formation, or you could use one of them in a wider area. But either way, if you're putting every player in their best position, then it's a challenge, because Palmer and Nkunku basically want to play in the same area. And if you sign Osimhen, then Nkunku doesn't lead the line in a 4-2-3-1. So do you change the formation, or you have to put one of Palmer or Nkunku out wide? And I think that neither of them are as effective playing in a wide position in a 4-2-3-1 compared to in a central position. So these are welcome problems to have, but I think that it's challenging in some ways. I think 3-4-2-1, as has just been put in the chat, is an interesting possibility, because it's the best for Reece James, it's the best for Ben Chilwell. And if all your centre-backs are fit, then you can finally and consistently play Colwell as a left centre-back. If Wesley Fofana's fit, and then you maybe sign one more centre-back, but you've still obviously got Badiashile, you've got Disasi, technically you've got Silva, but the expectation is that he might not be at the football club next season. And then from there, you got to establish how you kind of build your squad beyond that. But there's obviously 2 more spots in that 4 for probably Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez, and then Palmer and Nkunku, Osimhen. And when you spell out the side like that, most of the players are in their best positions. And that 11, I think, is a Premier League contending 11 if you add Osimhen to the mix. So these are welcome challenges, but something's got to give in terms of the Chelsea formation, the identity, the personality, as well as the leadership, and obviously the finishing. And until that missing piece of the puzzle comes, which is an elite striker they can't get now, or until Nkunku steps up and takes that position, it's very difficult to judge Chelsea, because so many players are either missing or playing out of position.
This is what I always say, like, it's been so difficult to judge, as you rightly said, because yeah, we could do better in certain instances, but of course, we haven't Poch's not got a full squad to pick from. Obviously, people say he spent all this money. Yeah, we have, but ultimately, we've not been able to use what we've spent, because so many players are out injured. It's not just the player. It's not just it's the length of time they're out injured, and it's also that most of them, a lot of them are starters, and a lot of them will be first choice on the bench. So, when I'm not saying you're going to get a fully fit squad the entire time, but it does make a huge difference. And I think you will see a different Chelsea once these players are fit. I saw something the other day that Ben Chilwell and Reece James, since the Champions League final in Porto, have started 14 games together in the last 2 or 3 years. That's awful. And, that makes such a big difference. But just around that, mate, I know we haven't got too long. Osimhen, obviously, it's the big one on, Chelsea fans' lips, in terms of the summer. He's already come out and said that, he's made up his mind. He knows what he's going to do. Premier League appeals to him. How would you consider Chelsea favourites for his signature, or do you envisage quite a tight battle? Maybe PSG could be interested if Mbappe goes to Real Madrid. If Mbappe stays at PSG, could Madrid potentially move for him? Is there other interest from the Premier League? Where would you put Chelsea in the race for Osimhen?
Yeah, it is very early. I know people like to jump to conclusions, and I know it makes good headlines. And I know that Osimhen said to CBS that he's made up his mind, but the mind that he's referring to is a move to the Premier League. That's my understanding. So that's good news for Chelsea. I don't think Osimhen will go to PSG. I expect a Saudi offer, and he said he was tempted by that, but that's purely financial. And I think Osimhen will welcome that and use that as leverage, but there'll be very little else that Saudi Arabia can do other than money. So I think for Osimhen to go to Saudi at this stage of his career wouldn't be the best move, given that he can earn well in the Premier League and he can make a box office move. So if we call the Premier League rather than Chelsea favourites, then you've realistically, I think, because Man City won't be in the mix, got 3 suitors: Chelsea, Arsenal and Manchester United. I think Manchester United will try, because they made an approach for Osimhen before he joined Napoli when he was still at Lille. And Osimhen spoke to Ighalo, who was at Manchester United at the time, who he's very friendly with. And Ighalo said, I think you're going to get buried here and not get any game time. So Osimhen decided to take a step back, even though that was his dream at the time, ended up joining Napoli, and the rest is history. So there's still that kind of unfinished business at Manchester United, but there's the whole appeal of Chelsea, appeal of London, of emulating Drogba. And I think that that's at the back of his mind. And we all know that as a kid, he owned a Chelsea shirt, but he also owned a Manchester United shirt as well. I think Arsenal are more inclined to go for Toney, but there's still no guarantee that Toney will be available at a decent price this summer. It might be a case of waiting for 2025 and free agency for Ivan Toney. So I think of the three, Arsenal is less likely at this stage, but don't rule them out. And Arteta kind of tinkers with his forward line so often that it's not as defined. Whereas again, Chelsea's formation lends itself towards Osimhen. It's blindingly obvious if he joins that he plays and starts. So he doesn't have to worry about too much competition. And you build your team around Osimhen. You don't put Nkunku leading the line and say, sorry, Victor, you got to play elsewhere. You either play two up top, so new formation again, or one up top, and the first name on your team sheet is Victor Osimhen. And then you have to work out who gets to play centrally out of Cole Palmer and Christopher Nkunku. So I think Osimhen will look at that Chelsea side and think, it's tailor-made for me. They're just creating a gaping gap that I can fill week in, week out. And if Chelsea don't use that to try and lure Osimhen over, then they're crazy, because they've got the clearest football pitch to him. As long as there's stability at the football club and there's not a bunch of managerial change. But of course, at Manchester United, it's similar. There could be managerial change, there's structural change. We need to understand who the new sporting director and head of recruitment is before we really can say Manchester United are definitely going to go all in. And I think that unlike Chelsea, if Manchester United don't get Champions League football, they just won't have the budget to go for Osimhen. So they'll by default be out of the race, unless they only make one signing and it's only Osimhen and they abandon everything else. But they need defensive reinforcements. They need midfield reinforcements. And only outgoings are going to give Manchester United a prayer. So Chelsea might appear unstable as a project. And compared to other clubs, of course, they are at this stage. But it's quite a stable pitch to Osimhen. It's come to London. It's be the next Drogba. It's play in a defined role. And it's help us return back to the glory days that we had under Roman Abramovich in return for a bucket load of money, a bucket load of fame, and a long-term contract. And I think if Osimhen isn't sold on that, he's not going to be sold on any move. So as long as he's prepared to be patient with, for example, Champions League not being a part of Chelsea potentially next season, I do think they're in the box seat. But it's important to note that there's nothing advanced enough yet to sort of say Osimhen said yes to Chelsea. All we can really say at this point is Osimhen said yes to the Premier League.
Yeah, and mate, just last minute or two before you need to go. Chelsea prepared to break their wage structure. And obviously, no, since Kirk have come in, there's been a clear thing of reducing the wage bill. There's a lot of incentivized wage increases. When you're going for the top players, like your Osimhen's or whoever it might be, they're probably not going to be prepared to sit in that wage structure. From what you understand or what you might think, do you think there's a way that Chelsea are they prepared to break that wage structure for the right player?
Potentially, although it can be a little bit unsettling at times if you've got one high earner and nobody else is on that wage. We're going to see this with Conor Gallagher. You know, he's looking to earn about the same as Moises Caicedo if he gets a new deal. And if he doesn't get a new deal and he's Chelsea's second best player behind only Cole Palmer, maybe he starts to think, like Mason Mount started to think, why am I not being adequately compensated? So it's a dangerous precedent, because when you spend $1 billion in the market and if you suddenly start paying one or two players significantly more money, then everybody wants it. Why is Enzo Fernandez in 2 years not going to say, I want another 100K on my wage? Why is Moises Caicedo not going to say the same? So Chelsea's whole model relies on the transfer fee being a investment, not an expense. And then the wage being reasonably low by Premier League standards, maybe 70 to 100K for most players on average. There are exceptions. And then over 3-4 years, if that player excels, they're suddenly only on a modest Premier League wage compared to their standard. But the flaw in the model is if you keep signing new players, giving them 200,000, 300,000 and so on, your 70 to 100k players say, well, we've been here 3 years, we're starting every week, we're now playing really well, we want a pay rise, and before you know it, everyone wants to go up. So Chelsea will be cautious, but with Osimhen, I don't think we're talking crazy money. I think that he probably would expect about 200k a week, which by Chelsea standards is great money, but it's not 350 or 400k a week. It's not the kind of money that would make him twice as high an earner as somebody else in the squad. And I do think that they'd be prepared to pay that, because I think that whether it's Osimhen, whether it's Ferguson, whether it's Tony, whoever this elite name is, will be deemed to be the solution for a very, very long time. And unlike some of the other signings that have high fees but are not the finished products, Enzo Fernandez, Moises Caicedo, Mikhailo Mudryk, and so on, I think this so-called elite striker will, even if they're at a younger age, be more established. And I think by being more established, they will demand that kind of money from the word go. And I know people say, well, he's earning more at Napoli, and everyone's got their own sort of maths in terms of what things equate to. But I'm not so sure. I think that the Napoli wage, from what I'm told in the new deal, is sort of about 170k maximum with everything, with bonuses for winning Scudettos or Champions Leagues. I think the base wage at Napoli is a bit lower than people are reporting. I think it's somewhere in the region of 120,000 plus bonuses. I think Chelsea would be looking at a base wage for Osimhen of 200 to 220,000 plus bonuses. So then if all goes according to plan, you're earning significantly more than Napoli. If all doesn't go according to plan, then it's not too dissimilar from his new deal at Napoli. The other thing to understand about the new deal at Napoli is that it is purposefully yardsticked at an increased wage that Osimhen expects when he moves for his own leverage. And Napoli can afford that because deep down they know he's going in the summer. So you don't have to significantly top the extension wage at Napoli. You kind of have to equal it or slightly better it, because Osimhen's making sure he rises to a level that he expects in the Premier League. And Napoli are committing to paying that because they know that in a few months' time, he's going to depart and they're going to get the best part of 130 million euros back.
Yeah, no, fascinating stuff, mate. Thanks so much for time. I know you're busy and you've got to shoot off, so pleasure to catch up as always. Thanks for your time, and yeah, I'll chat to you again soon. Cheers for that, mate.
Yeah, look forward to it. All the best, everyone, and good luck for the final few days of the window.
Cheers. Nice one. Thank you. All right, guys, we're going to carry on. Loads of information to unpack there. Big up to everyone in the chat. As always, make sure you're smashing that like button. Make sure you're subscribing. Make sure you're sticking about as well. I know Ben's gone and he's brought a lot of people in, but yeah, we can stick around. We can have a chat. We're going to get involved. Let's see. Let's dive into some of this stuff then. I want to start with the Conor Gallagher thing in a bit more detail, and this idea that, you know, Chelsea are not it's currently unlikely that Chelsea will offer Conor Gallagher a new deal. Now, does he deserve a new deal? Let's bring this up now from Fabrizio Romano. Literally come out a few minutes ago, not on his own account, but let's talk about this, because Conor Gallagher's an interesting one, isn't he? He's probably been Chelsea's second best player this season. He's on, as Ben was saying, he's on sort of a modest 50 to maybe between sort of 70 to 100k. The last contact between the two clubs, Chelsea and Tottenham, was in August last year, when Tottenham tried to make it happen in the final days of the summer window. The two clubs have never spoken about Gallagher since. Now, David Ornstein reporting this morning that Chelsea are currently unlikely to offer Conor Gallagher a new contract as it stands. And there has been interest from three top half Premier League clubs. Now, I don't expect anything to materialise for Gallagher in the last couple of days of this transfer window. I'd be very, very surprised if an offer came in from a club that Chelsea deemed suitable and deemed acceptable. But ultimately, if a new contract is looking unlikely for Conor Gallagher, and the club have made it very, very clear from the moment they took over, they don't want Conor Gallagher at this football club. You know, they've made that very clear. They tried to sell him in the summer just gone. They tried to sell him last January. I think they tried to sell him in the first summer when they arrived. It's clear that, he's not part of the plans. They want to cash in on him. They want the pure profit aspect. And as Ben was saying, this spending, whether you call it reckless spending or whatever you want to call it, you have to bring some money back in, and you're going to have to look for pure profit players. And unfortunately, that is the academy lads. And, selling the likes of Conor Gallagher, Broja, Chalobah, Martin, etc. I think we're going to see more and more of it. Yes, they're happy to, keep the very best, but ultimately this spending doesn't come without a price. And right now, the price seems to be that we have to sell players that are pure profit on the books. For me, I don't think we're going to get 50 million quid for Conor Gallagher. We go into the summer, if Gallagher doesn't get offered a new deal, we go into the summer and he's got 1 year left on his contract. His value automatically drops straight away with 1 year left. So right now, these last couple of days would represent the most money that we could get for Gallagher at this point in time. It's 100%. It is a financially driven move. There's no doubt about it. It's not a football-based move. I'm not saying that Conor Gallagher is an exceptional player and he should be a regular starter for Chelsea every week, but there's absolutely a place for him in the squad. And, you're going to have a situation. I'm not saying he should be a starter every week, but, you're going to end up in a situation where all you're doing is you replace Conor Gallagher with someone younger, someone with potential to be better, and that's what you're constantly doing. So I'm not saying he should be a regular star. What I'm saying is there's absolutely a place for him in the squad. And if I was Gallagher, do you know what? I would just run my contract down and leave on a free, because the way that he's being treated by the club is poor in my opinion. Don't allow the narrative to be spread that he's making difficult demands. He doesn't want to stay. We know Gallagher wants to stay. He said it himself. The manager wants him to stay. The owners don't want him to stay. That's their prerogative and it's their decision. But don't allow a club narrative to come out that Gallagher's making it difficult to stay. He doesn't want to. He's making unrealistic, demands, etc., etc. Like I think the owners have done a lot of good stuff since they've come in. But as Ben has highlighted, there's a lot of things that are flawed, and there's a lot of things that absolutely need to improve. And ultimately, they've done some good stuff. They've heavily invested, and again with this 150k, I think it was Ben that reported it himself. Actually, it wasn't specifically 150k. It was in and around that figure. Now, does Conor Gallagher deserve a new contract? Yes, he does. For given how he's played, and given the fact that he can be a useful squad player, does he deserve a new contract? Yes. On a personal level, he deserves a new contract, but also on a transfer level as well. Like, it would make sense for Chelsea to tie Gallagher down to a new deal to preserve his value. I'm not saying he should be offered a 5-year deal, 150k a week, which might make it a bit more difficult to shift him. But why can't he be offered like why can't he be offered like a 3-year extension on around 120k? Why is that so outrageous to ask for someone that has arguably, certainly for the first half of the season, been our best midfield player? It doesn't really make sense to me. I would keep Gallagher more than Broja. Oh, absolutely, in my opinion. Owners turned us mid-table. Most players mature around 23, 24 and peak from 28 to 32. Look at Gallagher's level already at his age. Look, Gallagher's a good footballer. I'm not saying he's outstanding or he's this and he's that, but he's a very good squad player. He can do a job from the bench. He's good enough to start, in the odd game here and there. And I just don't fully get it. It's not about having a team full of academy graduates. Ultimately, the academy's purpose is twofold. It's to produce players good enough for the first team, and it's to act as a bit of a cash cow to for the players that aren't quite good enough. I'm not saying we should have a team full of academy players. If you're good enough, you'll play. And that's how it always should be. But I just feel that there's a bit of an imbalance at the moment where you've got a situation where it looks like Chelsea, to make up for the spending they've done, are just going to sell academy players for pure profit, no matter how well they're doing. I'm not saying that the club would look to sell Reece James, but if Gallagher moves on, for example, you start to worry and you think, well, what's to say in a few years that they wouldn't think, actually, we could get pure profit on Reece James, quite a lot of that, and we'll then invest in someone younger with potential, and you keep going through the cycle. So I'm not saying Gallagher's elite. I don't think he ever is going to be, but there's definitely a place in the squad for players like him. You look at squads we've had over the years. Back in when Jose first came, when he had players like Yarisic and Smerton in there, and Jeremy, guys that you wouldn't say are top level players, but guys that understood their role, knew what it meant to kind of play for the club, etc. And for the sort of the 10 or 15 games a season they played, they were very, very important. And I think Conor Gallagher can do a similar sort of job. I mean, also, how much realistically is it going to cost you to replace Gallagher? Are you going to replace him, or do you bank on a youngster? Do you just stick with someone unproven like a Casadei or a Santos? Do you hope Lavia can keep himself fit for an extended period of time? There's so many different questions up in there. Would Gallagher be replaced, or because right now on the books, we've got Enzo, Caicedo, Gallagher, Ugochukwu, Santos, Casadei. We've been linked with Adam Wharton, a 19-year-old midfielder from Blackburn. We have got so many midfield players right now, and I get it that maybe one might need to go. But for me, my issue is not Conor Gallagher going necessarily. My issue is the reasons as to why he's going, because he's not going for footballing reasons. I know there's people that don't rate Conor Gallagher, and that's absolutely fine, but he is not being sold for footballing reasons. He is being sold for purely financial reasons, and that's dangerous ground when you start doing that, because where does the buck stop with that? Where do you draw the line on it? If we spent a lot of money, we need to bring some money back in because we haven't got Champions League money coming back in for another season or whatever. At what point do we draw the line on cashing in on these academy players and using them as sort of an FFP get out of jail free card, as it were? I think there's definitely a lot of flaws in the system right now. There's a lot of flaws in the project and the plan that we've been trying to do. And I would absolutely agree, Texas. Look, I'll be honest, I'm not hating on Clearlake or the new ownership at all. I think they've shown immense ambition, and I think they've got things right, with certain things they've done. But I would also be prepared to criticise where they've got things wrong. And I think the way that they've built the squad is wrong. I think the way that they're choosing to cash in on players for pure profit to counteract maybe the reckless spending at times is wrong. But I absolutely feel that, their intentions are in the right place. It's just the execution has been poor. The execution's not been great so far. I'm not saying, in a couple of years down the line that might change. Absolutely, that might change. There's no denying that. There's no getting away from that. It could absolutely change. By the way, guys, 123 in the building, only 74 likes. Let's get this to 100 likes as quickly as possible. Keep smashing that like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new round here as well. Let's try and get to 7.7k tonight. I'm sure there's definitely a few people in here who haven't subscribed. At the moment, guys, we are 15 subscribers away from 7,700. Let's try and get another 15 subscribers tonight. Let's get the job done, people. Smash that like button. It's free. And subscribe to the channel as well. There's definitely 15 out of 120 in here that haven't subscribed. So please do subscribe if you are new round here. What is the plan for Casadei, Santos, Moreira? Now they're all staying. Moreira has to stay at Chelsea because he's already played for Chelsea and he's played for Lyon. You can't play for more than 2 clubs in a season. So I suspect that he'll be part of the development side. Casadei is available for selection in the Premier League. Obviously, he's cup-tied in both cups. Santos is away until kind of mid-February with this pre-Olympic tournament with Brazil. So he's not around. It's part of the strategy. It's already too late. We will be forced to sell guys like Hall, Gallagher, Well, they're all gone. Hall is gone. Gallagher will go. Martson, someone will pay that release clause this summer. And Chalobah is surplus to requirements as well. I think we need an elite sporting director because I don't trust. No, look, I think we do. I think what I would say is that it's quite clear that we've got good talent ID guys, but we've got basically scouts trying to build a squad, and that isn't going to end well. No, mate, unfortunately, I'm not, but I'll be at Wolves, Palace, and City for sure. I've said it time and again. A lot of people have said this. Lampard's talent ID is top draw. You know, I know he wants to give this manager malarkey a crack. He's not that great at it, if we're being honest. He could get better, who knows? But absolutely, Lampard as a sporting director would be top draw. He honestly would be. Yes, big up, brother. Chelsea need an established, experienced centre-back as a silver replacement. Again, it depends what we're looking for. You know, it depends what we're looking for. We're looking for a starting centre-back, or we're just looking for an experienced head that can do a job in the squad. Let's wait and see on that front. Charlotte said in the summer, I don't trust them. Nothing has changed my mind because of their football strategy. Yeah, look, I think right now there's a lot of questions about the strategy. Look, we could look back on this, guys, in a couple of years' time and have to hold our hands up and say, do you know what? We got it wrong. And ultimately, this did work out in the long run. But right now, I absolutely agree that there are glaring issues with the recruitment model, with the strategy we're doing right now. There are some obvious issues at play. There's no denying that. And yes, we're picking up decent results right now, but there's a problem, you know, with the way the squad's been put together. You know, the fact that we've stockpiled in certain positions. The age profile is all the same as well. The squad's not well rounded. You know, we're stockpiling too many players in the same position. We're stockpiling players all of a similar age that all need minutes to develop, and they're all taking those minutes off each other. So some of these investments will develop quicker than others, naturally. But a lot of these guys need to be playing, and they simply aren't able to at the moment. That is the big issue for me, is that they're simply unable to play at the moment. Whether that's through the manager not picking them or whatever it is. But I mean, look, the Gallagher thing, it doesn't sit well with me. I understand why they're doing it, but at the same time, I just think it's really poor. I just think it's really poor. Would you take Joachim Andersen? I think Andersen's a good player. I wouldn't mind him, but again, if we're looking at a centre half from Crystal Palace, then Chelsea would be looking at Mark Gallagher. That would be the one they'd be interested in. What do you think of seeing Nkunku back in team training? I think he could well be on the bench for the Liverpool game. We'll find out tomorrow when Poch does the presser. I just don't see us paying 200k week wages for Osimhen. Maybe not, but if we want these top level players, then you have to pay. So I suspect we probably will. Nah, brother, I hear you. I mean, maybe it won't be that long. I think Osimhen will be a blue in the summer. Yeah, potentially. There's definitely, as Ben was saying, it's a clear pathway for him at Chelsea. You know, he'll definitely play. It would appear quite obvious, but I don't know is the answer to that. Fair enough. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, although I strongly disagree with that one. Get Gallagher a new deal. He's earned it. I agree. Let's move on. Let's move on to this one then. About the Blackburn Rovers midfielder. It's one that came out last night. And let me just quickly do this on. Let me just quickly share this one. Just last thing on Conor Gallagher, people, and then I will move on to Adam Wharton, the Blackburn midfield player. Simon Jones in the Mail saying Chelsea are looking for around £60 million for Conor Gallagher. Despite tentative inquiries, very few clubs are in a position to meet Chelsea's demand for Gallagher, particularly in this window. As I expected, and then with a year left on the contract, they're going to be even less likely to meet those demands. So I don't know if we're shooting ourselves in the foot with this Gallagher situation or not. It's I don't know. It's a really interesting one. It really is an interesting one. I don't know what kind of direction this is going in. I don't think we'll do anything in January. I tend to agree, mate. I think maybe Broja could leave, but in terms of incomings, I don't expect to see many incomings at all. Tamori's not going to come back, but he would be great. Yeah, do you know what? Yeah, fuck it. Why not? I would. This is marquee signing. Yeah, I would do that. Osimhen and Nkunku links would be slick. Where would you play Cole Palmer? Again, as Ben was saying, this brings sort of, these are great problems to have, but it's very hard to fit all these guys in. maybe you would play Palmer off the right-hand side. Maybe you have to rethink your formation. I don't know. Yeah, Blackburn plays today against Wrexham. They do. Sometimes I get the impression that clearly they're trying to develop players like Gallagher and then sell them on for 40, 50 million. That's why we stockpile all these young. Yeah, I think that's exactly what they're doing. No, I appreciate it, brother. It's always good fun, and it's not possible without you guys. So I do greatly appreciate the support. Sell Martin, Correa, Chalobah, Gallagher, Broja. Look, it's not about, we don't need to sell to buy Osimhen, but we do need to bring some money in to make sure that we're not sailing too close to the wind in terms of in terms of profit and sustainability, FFP, all that shit. This kid from Blackburn basing it, I'm not sure if it's being based on one performance. I would find that very hard to believe. He must have been someone that has been on the radar, or that performance caught the eye and they've been following him more closely since. I don't know. Guys, we're 10 likes away from 100 likes. Keep smashing that like button. 120 in the building. Let's make sure that we are smashing that like button, getting this up to 100 likes as quickly as possible. But let's move on to this now. The fact that Fafana and Lavia that are 140 combined and have hardly played in 2 years is a massive issue. Yeah, it's not their fault. But yeah, it is a problem. Sancho's not going to go on loan, no. Would you keep Sterling for another year or two? No, I wouldn't. I would like to get rid of Sterling this summer and bring Michael Elise in. But again, I don't know how likely that would be to happen. I'll keep Broja until summer, and who's going to play up front then if we sell? Why? That's the issue for me. But again, I could see maybe loan with an obligation certainly coming in for Broja. But again, as I was saying to Ben earlier, we're leaving ourselves so short, and with our injury problems, and with Nkunku not being able to keep himself fit for more than a few matches, you're asking for big trouble. Who are you playing up there? What, are you going to play David Washington up there? Or are you going to have to put Cole Palmer up there, which are too far from ideal situations? If we're being brutally honest, that is the reality of the situation. Let's just quickly bring up this information that was reported last night. Chelsea are preparing a move for £25 million midfielder Adam Wharton after Paul Winstanley watched him last week. His performance against Chelsea sparks their interest. Now, look, I was at the Carabao Cup game, Chelsea Blackburn, earlier in the season. I'll be honest, I don't particularly remember the kid. I wasn't looking out for him. I don't really think that he did an awful lot, although I can't be certain. I can't be certain that that's the case. But look, if I was advising him, I'd be telling this kid, look, don't come to Chelsea. Look at the midfielders we've got: Enzo, Caicedo, Gallagher, Lavia, Ugochukwu, Santos, Cassidy. 7 midfield players there. All right, Gallagher might go. That's 6. Maybe one of the others go. Where's this guy going to play? Where is this kid going to play at Chelsea? You can see exactly what's going to happen. If he came in, he might get a few cup minutes here and there. He'd probably spend a few years in the multi-club system, and then he'd be sold on for a profit, and he'd probably never play for us. If I'm advising a young kid now, particularly a young kid in midfield, and Chelsea are interested in you, I'm telling you to stay. I'm telling you to steer well clear. Steer well clear, because this is not going to be the best for his football development. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Palmer wasted his false 9. Yep, absolutely. I don't know. Look, I think it's maybe because they don't want to put timeframes on things, so that if the timeframe's not hit, then people get disappointed and start questioning why that's the case. But equally, this sort of cloak and dagger stuff where you're just left in the dark, not really knowing what's going on, is not that helpful either. I mean, some sources apparently have been saying that Lavia could return to training at the end of this week or next week. But again, it's difficult to tell. It's difficult to tell what's going on with Lavia right now. But it's a shame, he spent 58 million quid on someone and he's played 30 minutes of football since he signed in August. That's mad. 30 minutes of football Lavia's played. But yeah, Joe Shields is a good guy. You know, he's a driving force behind Michael Elise. He was the one that obviously got Romeo Lavia over the line. He was very instrumental in that. And he was instrumental in another move as well, which I've forgotten now. Joe Shields is the only one I trust. Yeah, Joe Shields is top guy. He will spend most of the time on the bench. He might not even make the bench. We need a left winger, not Elise. Leao, Jota with the clock leaving. Farrett Scalia is not going to leave Napoli in the summer. Jota, I think, would stay at Liverpool. Leao's not been playing that well, and he's signed a massive new contract at Napoli. At AC Milan, not too long ago. If Palmer doesn't work at false nine, then what? Look, it worked in that particular instance. I don't think Palmer at false nine is what you would describe as a long-term solution, because it absolutely isn't. Agreed. If Chelsea want to sell Sterling, bring in an established left wing. Again, I'm not sure on Chiesa. Look, he's got quality. He's decent enough, but I'm not. I'll be honest. I'm not fully convinced on Federico Chiesa. I'm not convinced on that. That would be my thoughts on that. Signing Adam Wharton could resemble. Look, Piazon. Did fuck all, didn't he? He just loaned around for years, and you feel like this would be a similar thing. I'll be honest. I don't see this happening. Look, Chelsea might put a bid in. I don't know. I think there's interest from other teams. I think Aston Villa and Newcastle are interested in him. Those two teams would be a far better move for him. But I think any move would be likely to be loaned back to Blackburn for the remainder of the season, and then potentially join up in the summer. No, I don't think we need a left winger either. I wanted to lay out Chelsea earlier of last year before we got Mudryk, but ever since he signed a new contract, no, he's not been performing that well. Players do go through peaks and troughs. He's not a bad player, but yeah, he's certainly going for a difficult patch at the moment. Nothing is guaranteed, but if all the youngsters click at the same time, when they mature, it could be something great. It could be, but the likelihood of all the youngsters clicking at the same time is, I'll be real, I try and be optimistic, but the chances of that happening are pretty much, slim to none, really. If we are being brutally honest, you'd be looking at slim to none in those, if you're looking at the chances of that happening. But you do never say never in football. But yeah, I agree. It is going to be very, very difficult right now for that to happen. But what else have we got going on in the window? Obviously, we had a bit of news on Levi Colwell's injury, not expected to miss too much time. Fuck knows what that means for Chelsea. Does that mean, he's going to be out for a month rather than 4 or 5? I don't know what that is, but there's not been an awful lot to say about him. It's an interesting one. Levi Colwell's injury is considered to be minor. It remains to be seen whether he's available for the trip to Liverpool. But even if he's not expected to miss much time. Fuck knows what that means. We got West Ham keeping an eye on Trevor Chalobah as well. That could be one to watch. This worries me a bit because I don't really understand how Chelsea could be viewing this as a boost to the squad, because it fucking isn't. Chelsea are expected to boost the squad by keeping hold of youngsters Washington, Santos, Moreira, and Cesare Casadei. That's not the boost I'm looking for. I'll be real. How is that a boost? I'd love someone to explain how that's a boost. What's it boosting? Because it's certainly not boosting our performance on the pitch in any way. Maybe it's boosting like the level in training because there's a few more players involved and whatnot. But yeah, this is nonsense for me. I just don't get it. I really don't get it. It doesn't make sense at all. How are we possibly thinking that's a boost? Expected to boost the squad by keeping hold of those youngsters who have all either been previously on loan or subject to loan interest this month. It's not making sense. I mean, we're in trouble if that's what we're thinking is gonna help us. It's bloating the squad. Obviously, it's not bloating the squad. Well, it's not bloating the squad too much because I don't think, because of the injuries we've got right now, I don't think it's a huge issue. But when players start coming back fit again, then that is going to be a problem. But how is that boosting anything? Cassidy, who was okay at Leicester, didn't put up any trees and made 25 appearances across all comps, and I think he scored 3 goals. Like, he wasn't a regular starter for them. And yeah, it's just been an odd one. It's just been a really strange one. How on earth is this boosting? And it's a worry about having a more bloated squad, especially if we don't have any real outgoings, and it's going to be the same issues that we all complained about last year. I could understand keeping one of Santos or Cassidy if Lavia and Ugachukwu have long-term injuries, but I just don't personally see how this is boosting the squad. It's not. I'd be surprised if Cassidy played any minutes for us in the second half of the season. I would be so surprised if he played any minutes at all. I really would. Santos, I'm not expecting to see anything from him. Moreira, absolutely not. And Washington, not really good enough. So yeah, it's a bit alarming to hear that. And as I say, it is bloating the squad. There's absolutely no getting away from it. And guys, there's no getting away from the fact there's 104 in the building. Big up to everyone. And we're still only on 93 likes. We need 7 more likes, guys, to hit the 100 mark. That should be light work with over 100 in the building. So please do keep smashing that like button. And please keep subscribing to the channel as well. There's 100 in here, guys. We need 14 more subscribers to hit 7.7K. That should be light work. So guys, come on. There's 14 of you in it that definitely haven't smashed that subscribe button. So make sure you do that. It's free and it takes seconds. And we're now 4 likes away, guys. So make sure you keep smashing the like button. What have we got going on here? Washington needs to go out on loan to a team like Final. Look at what Newcastle did to... we should do the same to Washington. I don't know how good this Washington even is. Do you think Michael Olise... Yeah, I think Olise would be fantastic at Chelsea. I think he'd be really, really good if we can get him in. I think he'd be brilliant for us. How long would you give Nkunku on Wednesday? Well, if he's fit to play, maybe try him with half an hour. I think we just got to be really careful with managing him and make sure that we can keep him as fit for the cup final. I don't want a big squad. No, agreed. Wednesday's a warm-up for the final. Let's spoil Klopp's party. If we unsettle them at Anfield, it's a physiological advantage. Pressure is on them. I won't be surprised if Cassidy outperforms Gallagher in midfield. I'd probably be a little bit surprised. Yeah, it's definitely not a boost. It's interesting that. I mean, maybe it's a boost for numbers in training. Makes it a bit easier. I don't really know, but yeah, it's an odd one. Yes, big up, brother. First sort of 25 minutes or so was Ben Jacobs, so just stuff about Broja potentially leaving, Osimhen, centre forwards, Gallagher, etc., all that sort of thing, and then we're just going through sort of kind of the ownership, transfer targets, etc., that sort of thing. What else is popping off? I'll smash like, mate. There's been no links to this geezer. I don't know who he is, but I can assure you that he won't be signing for Chelsea. They're not getting away with the way of like, yeah, guys, come on. It's mad, isn't it? People watch, but they're not prepared to press the like button. It's free. I'm not asking for any money or anything. And yeah, mad. People not keen to press the like button. 3 likes away, guys. Yes, big up, big up, big up. No, I don't think we will. But obviously, I'll get into that in more detail tomorrow. Absolutely, get into that in more detail tomorrow. So yeah, let's have a look what we've got going on. I mean, that's just a weird thing to say. It's a boost. I mean, in what possible way is it a boost other than just having more numbers in training? Other than that, I just don't see how that's providing any boost whatsoever. But maybe I'm stupid, and I need to be I need to maybe rethink the situation as to why that is a boost. I don't know. But yeah, what else have we got popping off Chelsea wise, guys? A couple of days of the window to go. I mean, who is gonna come in? That is the question. I think he's obviously been playing some games for whatever it is, the 21s or the development side or whatever it's called these days. I don't know. I don't know what it is called these days. I'm really a little bit unsure on what it's called these days. But yeah, it's certainly an interesting one to say the least. It is an interesting one for sure. But someone, yeah, no, I don't. Honestly, as I said, I'd be surprised if Casadei plays. I really would be surprised. And that's not because he's shit, but I just don't. I personally just don't see him playing. That for me is the reality. I just don't see him playing. Simple as that. I really don't see him playing. But possibly he said. I think he said it would probably be unlikely. But you can't rule it out. They do want a striker, but they want to get the right person. So yeah, it's going to be a tricky one. That for sure, it will be a tricky one. Guys, we've hit 100 likes. Let's try and ramp this up. Probably going to go for another 5 or so minutes. So keep smashing that like button. Let's try and get this to 110 if we can. Giving Kunku 3 to 4 games, he's going to really turn the tide. Let's try not to put too much pressure on him because we thought that last time and he got injured after 3 to 4 games. Maybe not even that. Want to see that blue balloon from Nkunku at Stamford Bridge this season? I agree, bro. I agree. Let's ruin Klopp's party like we did to Wenger when we beat Arsenal 6-0 at home. Yeah, it would be nice to ruin the party, but if I had a choice, if we had to lose on Wednesday night and it meant we win the cup final, then yeah, I would take that trade-off. But I don't think we should be afraid of this game. It's going to be difficult, of course it is, but I don't think we should be afraid. We're 2 days into the January transfer window and Chelsea haven't signed anyone. Yeah, no, we haven't signed anyone. I'm not sure if we will sign anyone. That's the reality of the situation. Maybe we don't sign anyone, and maybe that's not such a bad thing given how many players we've signed in the last couple of windows. And if it means that we get who we want in the summer, then I think that ultimately for me is a fair trade-off. Is absolutely a fair trade-off. That is what I would that's what I would be saying. I think it's a fair trade-off. But yeah, I mean, what other news is there to go through, people? There's not really an awful lot more, I don't think, to be going through at this point in time. Obviously, Sanchez is back in some form of training as well. And now, slight change to the Carabao Cup Final kickoff time. It was due to kick off at 4:30. It has now been brought forward officially to a 3 p.m. kickoff. Chelsea's Carabao Cup Final against Liverpool at Wembley will now take place at 3 p.m. on Sunday, 25th of Feb, 2024. So there has been a change in kickoff time for the Carabao Cup Final, guys. That has been the change. Eduardo, the Portuguese goalkeeper. No, I don't remember him. Do you mean Hilario? I don't remember an Eduardo in goal at Chelsea. I hope we don't sign anyone, only be kids anyway. Potentially, yes. Not surprised we've not signed anyone, but very surprised more have not left. I just think there's not been... I think Chelsea have maybe thought there'd be more offers for... I think they overestimated how many offers they would be getting for players. And it's just not been as busy as they thought. Eduardo didn't make a single appearance. Oh, fair. Hope Petrovic remains first choice keeper. I agree, brother. I agree. That would be nice, but we've got a few more games to get through before we get to that one. So yeah, let's see what happens. But what else is going on? Let's see. Is there any other information to go through? Sanchez back on the grass. We've done that. it's not really. I don't think there's really too much more to go for. Obviously, West Ham are keeping an eye on Trevor Chalobah. I hope for Chalobah's sake he does get a move. Otherwise, it's going to be a whole season of him just not playing any football whatsoever, and that's not great. That's not great at all. So I hope for his sake he does get it, whether it's a loan with an obligation or whatever it is. He just needs to get out and he just needs to go and play, because it really isn't fair on him. He's best part of 6-7 months where he just simply has not played. And Nkunku back in training. He was back in training last week anyway. Possibly not, mate. Possibly not. That is what we're looking at. Possibly not. But again, never say never. Signing someone in the next few days would resemble the signing we made on. Oh yeah, he was actually from Sunderland, wasn't he? Or did we end up selling him to Sunderland? I don't know where Gusto is. They don't always get pictured. So I don't think it's anything to worry about. In my opinion, I don't think it's anything to worry about at all. Yes, big up, brother. Appreciate it. When Sanchez comes back and if Poch puts him back in number 1, I'd be disappointed. I'd be disappointed if Sanchez goes straight back in, because I just think that's so poor. I just think that's so poor. Look, again, as Ben was saying earlier, a 35 million move for Broja for Fulham would be like a club record. So, this is not small money, for the likes of, your Wolves and your Villas potentially, and your, what do you call it, and your Fulhams and stuff. That does represent big money, and whether it's a loan with an obligation doesn't really get Chelsea any money in right now, which is what they're looking for. So yeah, there are, as I said, there are no guarantees, guys. There are no guarantees. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. It's going to be a tricky one. It is going to be a tricky one. I'm just, I don't know. I'd rather not. I'd rather not sign anyone, and just to get it right. I'd rather do that. But it's going to be interesting. Yes, no, big up, brother. I appreciate the support. Okay, mate, I'll have a look at some point. Had surgery involved scraping bone from my hip, ball joint, and removing the cartilage so it could grow back. I see. But yeah, obviously, Carabao Cup Final has been moved forward. Will we sign someone in the last couple of days? Who knows? But, from a Chelsea perspective, having gone into this window thinking, could it be an Osimhen? Could it be a Tony? Could it be, I don't know. Well, the answer is, it's probably going to be absolutely fucking no one, which is okay. But as Ben said, as we discussed earlier, that could be okay. But if you sell Broja and then Jackson, doesn't come back into the mix straight away, and Nkunku can't keep himself fit, you've got David Washington as the only centre forward at the club who is so raw, he'd probably give you Salmonella. So, you leave yourself very, very, very short. Yeah, he is. He is. Maybe that could happen. I mean, I don't know where he is, but yeah, that could potentially happening. Yeah, guys, keep smashing the likes and subscribe. But yeah, people, I'm probably going to round this one out now. Big up to everyone that's tuned in. Greatly appreciate the support from absolutely everyone. If you want to go back and watch what Ben Jacobs was saying, it's the first 25 minutes or so of the stream. Big up for all the support, guys. Please smash the likes on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. It would really mean a lot to me. And I'll catch you guys for more transfer news tomorrow and the Liverpool preview. Up the Chelsea. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your evening, guys.